This video is brought to you by Roll for Combat and the RPG Superstar Contest. Create up to 3 of your own Pathfinder 2nd Edition monsters for a chance at winning several prizes, including the publication of your creations in an upcoming Battlezoo bestiary. Enter now at rpgsuperstar.com. Hey everybody, Dave here with another Pathfinder rule reminder for you, and today's topic is retrying failed skill checks. What's the rule for trying to do something over again, and is there anything that prevents a player from just constantly doing the same check over and over and over again until they finally get the roll that they want and they succeed? So I guess first things first, there is no universal, all-encompassing rule for failed skill checks. I know some other role-playing systems use rules like if you fail, you can't try again until the next day, or if you fail, you can't try again until there's a significant change in the situation, or until your modifier or bonus with that skill improves. There's nothing like that that's hard-coded into Pathfinder 2nd Edition, but there are a variety of different skills and applications of skills that do have some text that tell you what happens on a failure and how that might affect additional attempts to repeat that same check. But I guess first things first, I should probably talk a little bit about some philosophy here. I don't believe it's ever written into the text of Pathfinder 2nd Edition, but a very common philosophy amongst GMs is not to roll dice just for the sake of rolling dice. So, in other words, before you even have a player roll a skill check, ask yourself, is there any real hazard to failure? Is there any real complication that's going to occur if they don't get this done and get this done right now? And if there's no real complication that can come out of a failed attempt, then don't waste time at the table with skill checks and repeated skill checks and so on and so forth, and just give them a success and move the story along. So with sort of those philosophical things out of the way, let's talk about what the rules do say. So first things first, it depends on what the skill is going to be. Picking locks, opening locks, that's a very common area. In fact, most locks require multiple skill checks in order to open. Now, is there anything preventing a person from repeating a failed pick a lock check over and over and over again until they get it? Well, the first thing that would prevent that is if the lock has a minimum proficiency level requirement and the person doesn't meet that proficiency level requirement. But assuming they do, there's nothing in the rules that prevent them from trying over and over again. But keep in mind, every time that person critically fails that check, they break their pick. So they are going to be limited by how many picks they have. Another factor that's going to impact whether or not a person can do repeated attempts of any skill is what's the environment like. If a person tries to pick a lock and they critically fail that first one and that lock pick breaks, well, what's on the other side of that door? Are there enemies? They probably just heard that pick break, or they probably heard someone curse in frustration after that happened, and so now the situation is going to be different because of that failure. Even if they do have repeated attempts to get that lock open, now on the other side of that door, people are ready. Same philosophy applies to any other check. The longer a person's repeating that check, the GM has to ask themselves, well, what's happening during this time? What's the big bad evil guy doing during this time? What are anybody else doing during this time that could be a complication for them because it's taking longer than anticipated? And one area where I hear this a lot is about recall knowledge checks. Can I really just try to think really, really hard and repeat my recall knowledge check over and over and over again until I get enough natural 20s to know everything there is to know about the subject of this recall knowledge? That is one of the areas where fail conditions is hard-coded in. Now, it's not listed as failure or critical failure in the block for recall knowledge. I wish it was. But if you look at the text for additional knowledge that specifically talks about repeated attempts to recall knowledge, it says that every time you succeed at a recall knowledge check, you can retry again to get more information, but the difficulty of that DC goes up by 1 step. and a player can continue to repeat these checks until one of two things happens. Either they succeed at an incredibly challenging difficulty check, or they fail. So, rules is written, if you attempt a recall knowledge check and you fail, then that's it, you cannot do any more of those. Now, it also has baked into it that if you critically fail, then you get a piece of incorrect information. And so that would also be sort of an ending point, but the player doesn't know that they're at an end point. So in that case, they may critically fail, you give them an incorrect piece of information, and they say, well, I would like to get some more information, I'm going to try again. Recall knowledge is a secret check, so the GM's going to roll that behind the GM screen, and whatever the result of that die is, they just say, oh no, sorry, you failed, that's it. And one last thing that we should definitely talk about is there is written into the rules the philosophy of failing forward. If you look at the educating the rules section in the book, it has a series of bullets, and I should probably take time to do videos about some of these other bullets, but I think the very last bullet on the list is the philosophy of failing forward, which means let your players attempt a check, and if they fail, then you give them a success on the check anyway, but you apply some other complication because you don't want the game to stop. You want to keep the momentum moving forward. So if they're trying to break down a door and they fail on the check, you could say, well, no worries, you break that door down, but you hit it at a weird angle and you twist your ankle and you're going to be suffering, your speed's going to be lowered by 5 feet a turn, or you suffer 1d4 bludgeoning damage. The idea is, instead of being in a situation where you are going to have repeated skill checks over and over and over and over again, just take the one check, and if they fail, let them fail forward. Let them get the success and keep momentum going, but come up with some other complication that arises as a result of that failure. So that's it. As always, if you could leave your questions about this topic in the comments, also leave your suggestions for future rule reminders there as well. I'll make sure that I leave in the description links to any other videos that might be related to this topic. And of course, I want to say thank you to everybody out there who supports me, whether that is through clicking the like button, subscribing to the channel, sharing the video, subscribing to the Patreon, leaving comments and suggestions. I appreciate everything you folks do to support me. And with that, thanks for watching, take care, and happy gaming.